Hello, friends and family. Thank you for joining us and receiving our newsletter for Now Interpret This. We really appreciate you. And today I'm going to just share with you the events to the best of my ability and the best of my recollection about the accident that Sarah Bryan and I were in on June 14th, Thursday afternoon at 5:30. Sarah and I were coming out of Kruger National Park, headed toward Malalane, and we were coming out of the Malalane gate. I did not have my seatbelt on, so I was down on the floor getting something when I heard Sarah call out to Jesus. When I got up and looked out the window toward her, to our right, she was driving, and we were driving a friend's car, an SUV, Toyota Fortuna. I saw a red Cressida coming at the front right fender. It was like a nanosecond. It happened so quickly. Felt the impact, and then we both went to sleep. I'm sharing this because the glory of God is so on all of this. As you have seen in the photographs here in the newsletter, the outcome could have been and probably would have been much, much different. The Lord gave us dreams along the way to clearing into and praying into, but we had no idea that the outcome was going to be this accident. Only God knew, and He shared only what He needed to share with us. We were faithful to pray and to declare and do what we needed to do. So as we were coming out of Kruger State Park, we had just gone through the intersection. The Cressida hit us. We both go to sleep. We both woke up at the same time, hanging upside down, and both were thinking at the same time, this would be the third roll. Now, I don't know how many times we rolled because I slept through most of it, as I said, but then we both go to sleep again after speaking to each other hanging upside down for 1 second. We go back to sleep again, and when we wake the second time, we're sitting upright 2 lanes over to our left and out in the field in the grass. Now, the accident happened at 5:30, and we were sitting for some time there in that area. The car was sitting still. My door was actually jammed shut, so I couldn't actually get out. But Sarah had the presence of mind to turn off the engine, get out of the car, go around the car, and say to me, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" But I couldn't actually move. I don't know whether I was just in shock. My knees were in the dash. My left arm was laying in my lap. I knew that it was broken, but I felt absolutely no pain until later when I started moving around. I just felt no pain, but I knew it was broken. I was bleeding some, but I didn't know where the blood was coming from. So I stayed in the car, probably mostly because I was just in shock and I didn't know what was going on. The wrecker showed up next, and one of the guys forced the hood open and actually disconnected the battery so that the car would not blow up. As I sat in the car, there was a man who came and looked inside and was asking strange questions. Sarah and I, of course, are both sitting there alone. But in some areas of South Africa, the robbers get to you before the police do. And actually, the police are almost as corrupt as the robbers in some areas as well. So when I woke up, I felt that the Holy Spirit was saying to me, "Keep everything with you." Sarah and I both had cash rand in our purses because we had done 2 months of meetings, and our meetings brought in offerings. So we both had that money in our purse, and hers was around her arm, and mine was sitting next to me. But as I said, I couldn't move. A lot of things were thrown out of the car, and I just was picking things up and throwing them in a bag. It's like the Holy Spirit was telling me, just keep everything close, just keep everything close. So next, the ambulance shows up. Now, it's getting dark by now, and I guess the guy who came around, who was looking, the wrecker must have scared off because he didn't bother us. But God's hand was just so on us. It was just incredibly amazing. And I'm sure I'm not telling the story as well as I should, but just give you the best account that I know. It wasn't long. It was after dark, but it wasn't long until the ambulance had the woman who was driving the red car and another man in the ambulance. Now, at this point, I still don't know what happened, but basically what happened was the woman was coming from the other direction, trying to turn right, and a taxi overcame her and hit her from the rear and shot her into our lane, which is what caused the accident. The taxis over here kill literally thousands of people every year in South Africa. A lot of them actually buy driver's licenses. They don't take a test or anything. So it was just really amazing the way this all happened. And of course it happened so quickly that we didn't have time to guard or try to brace in any way, or we probably both would have had multiple broken bones for sure. Anyway, the police began to show up, and as they did, they surrounded us. So it's dark now, but the police are on every side of us. So no one else is coming around us. It's like God literally covered us and surrounded us with His police, with His guards. These were people who were very sweet and very kind officers. One was picking things up outside, which were a lot of them were gifts that I had bought for family and friends that had gotten thrown out of the car. And one of the police women was actually handing me things through the window before I could even get out of the car, and I was putting them in my bag, just as Holy Spirit said. So eventually a plainclothes policeman did come over and get me out of the car, and the ambulance was actually trying to take us all to Jeanway Hospital, which was the other direction from where we were going and a long way. We were trying to get to Nelspruit, which is where our friends were, and we needed to connect with them. So Sarah had a huge contusion with a hematoma on the side of her head, which you saw the photographs. It was just amazing. We had bought a bag of ice the night before, and so we put the ice on it immediately after the accident, and I think that helped a lot. But it was very difficult because she was very upset. We were both upset, but just probably more in shock than anything, I guess. Anyway, she began to call for our friends to come and get us, and they were on their way, but the police wanted to take us to the police station. So they put me in the ambulance and just had the paramedic do a sort of a makeshift splint on my arm, which was great, and until I could get to the hospital. And they while I was actually in the ambulance, I got to pray over the taxi driver and the woman who was in the Cressida. We later found out that she was paralyzed from her waist down. You could see how that would be true from the pictures of her car. She was about 70 years old and a kindergarten teacher. She was very close to home, and her husband actually heard the crash but had no idea that her wife was in the midst of it. After I got the splint, the police began to load us up and take us to the police station because it wasn't safe for us to be sitting out on the side of the road. So they took us into the Malalane police station, and we waited there till our friends could come and get us. The police was so kind. He showed me the truck after he got all of our stuff out of it, after he got all of our stuff into it, just to make sure that everything was there. It was like the Lord was highlighting that we needed to arrive wherever we got with everything that we brought, that nothing should be robbed of us, not even money. And if you read through the dreams that I posted before the video, you'll see that one of the dreams was that we lost all of our money, that it was stolen out of my wallet. But we declared against that, we prayed against that, and we stood in faith, and the Lord covered us through it all. So our friends finally got to the police station to nab us or fetch us, as the South Africans would say, and then took us to the hospital. Now, all that Sarah and I both had was probably 2,000 or 3,000 rand, which is not much in dollars, but it was going to cost 2,000 or 3,000 rand just to do triage and just to assess what was going on. Then we were going to have to pay separately in advance for any sort of treatment that we got. So we wound up going next door to a state hospital where we spent hours and hours and hours. It was probably, I don't know, 12:30 or 1 before we actually got somewhere and got into a bed. But I'm saying all of this to say, sometimes we don't know exactly what our dreams mean, and we don't know exactly what God is doing or saying. But if we just listen and we respond in radical obedience, He covers us in all of it. We spent 3 full days on and off at the state hospital, and they charge as well. I had to have anesthesia so that they could manipulate and set my arm the next day, or I'm sorry, it was like 3 days later. Lots of details, which I won't go into, but the Lord covered us the whole time. When we left the hospital, when I left the hospital, Sarah actually left before I did, we weren't admitted. We were just going back and forth every day, spending whole days there because the wait at a state hospital is so long. But when all was said and done, after the anesthesia and after the prescription and after all that they had done and put a full cast on after the manipulation of the arm and all of that, the hospital never asked either of us for money. There was no charge. It was incredible. That just doesn't happen. So you can see how the Lord just cradled us from the very beginning. He didn't give us time to guard so that we would be broken and torn up in this accident. We were just like rag dolls being rolled around. And then when the accident was over, the car was sitting straight up instead of on its head, or the roof, which maybe both of our necks would have been broken had that happened. And He just carried us the whole way. We, like I said, slept through it, so we didn't have time to have a lot of even trauma. The Lord just walked us through everything. I'm not saying that the hospital visits and all of that were not painful and were not traumatizing in some ways, but the Lord just directs us. He told me what to pray. He told me how to cover myself. He told me how to shut the doors when they gave me anesthesia, and it caused a terrible reaction. I was crying and throwing up and having like a bad trip. I'm very hypersensitive to narcotics, so there was a lot going on, but the Lord's hand was in every bit of it. And when we prayed at the end, after all of it, all the detail and all that had happened, the Lord just said to us, the enemy touched you on South African land, and I'm giving you greater authority because he did. So I just wanted to share that with you and just let you know how appreciative we are of all of your prayers and all of your heartfelt comments. It's just been incredible. I can't even tell you how thankful I am, number one, to be alive, but number two, to know that God is not finished with us and we have purpose to fulfill. Now, had we both died, Paul said, to die is gain. So it would have been better than even living, but he's obviously not finished with us yet. So we still have work to do on South African soil, and he's been doing some incredible things. The meetings have been incredible. Freedom has come to people. Freedom has come to us. We've just seen such beautiful orchestration of God's hand working in people's lives, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Again, I just thank you, and I love you all, and I just appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of this family, and thank you for caring.